Hi all, today we are reading Box of Shocks, Chapter 5. Chapter 4, it was just said that our main character is heading to the farm. Is he gonna fill up his box of shocks there? I don't know. We'll have to find out. I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff Oliver could get into at the farm. Alright, let's dive in. Chapter 5. Every day is pretty much the same at Aunt Jean and Uncle Ned's farm. In the mornings, I pitch bales of hay, shovel manure, and do all other wonderful chores like weeding the garden. In the afternoons, I'm free, but I'm also stuck with Stuart. As often as possible, I try to ditch him, but it isn't easy. The first 2 weeks, he sticks to me like Velcro. Whenever I go for a bike ride, Stuart's right behind me on his bike. Whenever I want to hike in the hills behind the farm, Stuart follows me step for step. One afternoon, I catch a lucky break. Aunt Jean is taking Stuart to some doctor's appointment, and Uncle Ned is fixing his tractor, so I've got a whole afternoon of freedom. I'm not about to waste my first chance to collect another shock for my box of shocks. As soon as Aunt Jean and Stuart drive away, I check to make sure Uncle Ned's busy working on the tractor shed. And then I head off. I know exactly where I'm going. For my next stunt, I'm going to ride Brutus the Bull. Sure, I've ridden plenty of bikes, scooters, and rollerblades, that sort of thing, but I've never ridden anything alive before, not even a pony. Mom says horseback riding is too dangerous. I'm sure when Mom and Dad sent me to Aunt Jean and Uncle Ned's, they didn't figure bull riding was going to be one of my spare time activities. I head out to the far field and look for Brutus. When I reach the fence, all I could see is one animal, and it is definitely not Brutus the bull. Even though I grew up in a city, I know the difference between a bull and a cow. The four-legged thing standing in the field is definitely a cow. Where's Brutus? I yell. The cow just stands there chewing on some grass. Since this is Uncle Ned's only fenced field, this cow is it. They must have gotten rid of the bull. So if I'm going to ride something, it has to be this cow. Sure, there's a huge difference between riding a bull and riding a cow. After all, how often do you see cow riding in the rodeo? The problem is, I don't have much of a choice right now. It's this cow or nothing. I slip carefully through the barbed wire fence and look across the field at the cow. She stares back. I take a few steps towards her, and she lifts her head a little. There's nothing to worry about, my fine four-legged friend, I say. It's your old buddy Ollie. I'm gonna take you for a bit of a ride, that's all. It won't hurt a bit. I take 2 more steps towards her. As I get closer, I wonder what I could bring back from riding a cow to put in my box of shocks. There's nothing on the cow to take. All around the ground are cow patties, but I don't think I want a dried hunk of cow poop stinking up my box of shocks. I'll have to think of something as I ride her. I'm a few feet away from the cow when she suddenly bolts, galumphing across to the other side of the field. Cows aren't exactly built for speed, so if she runs again, I should be able to catch her pretty easily. I walk towards her. And just like last time, when I'm about 5 feet away, the cow starts to run. This time I take off after her. It doesn't take me long to catch up to her. Just as I'm ready to fling my arms around her neck, she veers to the left and gallops away. Get back here, you four-legged milk machine, I shout, sprinting across the field towards her. As soon as I'm close to grabbing her, she changes direction and dodges away. All right, now you've had it, I shout, taking off after her again. Once more, she swerves and gallops off just as I'm about to grab her. Listen here, Miss Moo, I shout. You may think you're pretty fast, but I have a 3rd place ribbon from track day when I was in grade 4. You don't stand a chance. I run at her, pumping my legs as fast as I can. Just when I think I've got her, my foot slips on something. It isn't a banana peel. It's green and squishy and very, very stinky. My foot shoots out from under me and I fall sideways, putting my hand down to try to stop my fall. My hands ends up sinking into another blob of green, squishy, stinky, fresh cow poop. Ooh. Yuck! I scream, trying to wipe the cow poop off my hands on the grass. Who wants to ride a stupid cow anyway? I run from the field and crawl through the fence, catching my shirt on the barbed wire. I swear I'll never drink milk again. Or even a milkshake. Yes, that's how mad I am. Because the worst thing is that for the very first time, my plan for a wild and crazy stunt hasn't worked out. All because I tried to ride the fastest cow in the world. Over the next few days, while Stuart and I are doing chores around the farm, I keep an eye out for other stunts to pull. After the disaster with the cow, I have to come up with something that doesn't involve farm animals or any other kind of manure. One afternoon, while we're weeding the garden, Uncle Ned says, "Mind you don't touch that orange wire." He points to a wire fence running around the beehives. "What is it?" I say. "It's an electric fence to keep the bears out." Right away, I know what my next stunt will be. The electric fence is way too close to the house for me to do my stunt during the day. Someone is bound to see me, so it can only be done at night. That night, I wait until I could hear Aunt Jean, Uncle Ned, and Stuart all snoring up a storm. Then I sneak downstairs and slip out the front door. There's enough moonlight for me to see the path across the yard to the beehives. There it is, the electric fence. I've never touched one before, and I've never even seen anyone else touch one. But the thing is, I've never heard of anyone dying from touching an electric fence either. So touching one for a second shouldn't be that bad. I walk up to the wire, and right before touching it, I remember, I need something for my box of shocks. What can I bring back from this? A piece of the wire is out of the question. But what else is there? I can't think of anything right now, so like the last time, I go ahead with the stunt and hope that something will come to me. I take a closer look at the fence. It sure doesn't look like much. Just this skinny orange thing. But it must pack a wallop if it can keep a bear out of the beehives. Very slowly, I move my pointer finger towards the wire. I hesitate. Something is holding me back. Probably the thought of 1,000,000 volts shooting through my hand, up my arm, and ending up who knows where. Maybe smoke will come out of my ears. Maybe my hair will catch fire. On the other hand, touching a wire wouldn't be much of a stunt unless something happened to me. That's the point of doing this. If Uncle Ned thinks it's dangerous, what would my safety freak mom think? Plus, if my hair catches on fire, I could always cut a brunt chunk of it off and put it in my box of shocks. Ah! Okay, here goes. I say to myself, 1, 2, 3. I jab my finger at the wire, but just before it makes contact, I pull back. I can't make myself touch it. Okay, enough of this. Stop being a chicken, I think. This time you'll do it. 1, 2. That instant, I hear a noise. It's coming from behind me. I whirl around to see what it is, but as I spin, I lose my balance, waving my arms like a windmill. I try to stay upright, but it's no use. Over I go, landing right on the electric fence with my rear end. My butt. The force of my fall pulls the fence to the ground, and there I sit, right on an orange electric fence wire with a gazillion volts of electricity running through it. But something is wrong. There's no smoke coming out of my ears. Plus, my hair isn't on fire. It doesn't feel like there's a gazillion volts of energy or electricity zapping through my body. I don't feel anything at all. I reach down and grab the orange wire with my hand. Nothing. There's no electricity running through it. What in the world are you doing out here? A voice says. It's Uncle Ned. I'm, checking to make sure the electric fence is working, I say. What are you doing out here? I woke up and remember I forgot to plug it in, he says. If I were you, I'd get up off that wire before I plug it back in. Otherwise, well, let's just say it's the sort of thing you'll never do again. I climbed off the ground and backed away from the electric fence. Thanks for warning me, Uncle Ned, I say as I head back to the house. 2 in a row. I can't believe it. It's like I've lost my knack for doing crazy stunts. First the cow, and now the electric fence. What is going on here? But I don't give up that easily. I'm determined to have at least one souvenir from my time here at the farm. And after 2 failures, it better be something really spectacular. I mean, really spectacular. But what? I get my answer one hot day when Uncle Ned takes Stuart and me down to the river for a swim. Close to the beach is the Pegasus Valley Bridge. It's an old bridge made from rough wooden beams held together by bolts and cables. The sides of the bridge stretch up in a pattern of crisscrossing beams, and it's probably only about 20 feet up from the water. At each end of the bridge is a big sign with blood red lettering. No jumping from bridge. When I see the bridge and the sign, I know what my next stunt has to be. With Uncle Ned here, I can't jump off the bridge this time, but it gives me a chance to look at it over before I actually take the plunge. As it turns out, I'm not the first person to think of jumping off the bridge. The first day we're there, 3 kids jump off the bridge. I watch closely as they walk out to the middle of the bridge and crawl onto an outside beam. They stand there looking down the river, too scared to jump. Their friends call them wimped out, chicken-livered saps, and some way worse names that my mom definitely would not approve of. But every one of those kids ends up jumping. No matter how scared they look, they all jump and make a big splash, disappearing under the water for a while before finally bubbling back up. I'm not bragging when I say that I'm a pretty good swimmer. Mom had me in swimming lessons since I was in diapers. Plus, I don't mind heights. The only thing I don't have is a group of friends shouting at me to jump. When I jump, I'll have Stuart, who's probably never called anyone a name in his life. Still, this is one crazy stunt. I can actually pull this off. There is no speedy cows or unplugged electric fences involved in this stunt, just a high bridge and a river. If my parents ever saw a kid jumping off a bridge, they'd probably call the police. If they saw me jumping off, I don't know how they'd react. That's why this will be the best stunt ever. Over the next couple of weeks, Stuart and I go swimming at the river a bunch of times. Unfortunately, either Aunt Jean or Uncle Ned comes along every time, so no jumping from the bridge. It would be tough to pull off without my parents hearing about it. The day before I'm due to go home, Stuart and I finally get to bike down to the river by ourselves. This is my last chance. This is the day I have to do it. It's now or never. When we get to the river, I spend about an hour splashing about in the water, throwing sand at Stuart. When Stuart sits down on the sand to eat a cucumber sandwich and drink Aunt Jean's homemade lemonade, I say, "I'll be back in a few minutes." "Where are you going?" he says. I don't say anything as I walk straight out to the middle of the bridge. When Stuart sees what I'm doing, he throws down his cucumber sandwich and runs across the sand towards the bridge, shouting, "You better get off there before the police show up." "The police don't show up for stuff like this," I shout back. From the main deck of the bridge, I crawl out and then slowly, carefully stand up, balancing on the outside beam. "But there's a sign! An official-looking sign!" Stuart shouts. "Don't worry, Stuart," I call back, trying to keep my balance to steady myself. I grab a wire with one hand and curl my toes over the splintery beam. "Why would they put up a sign if they weren't going to arrest you?" Stuart isn't going to give up. He reminds me of Mom and Dad. I bet Mom wishes I was more like Stuart. I stop for a second and watch him try to scramble up the sandy bank, but he keeps slipping back down. "If the police show up, I don't know you, Oliver. Do you understand?" Stuart finally reached the top of the bank, and he's running towards the bridge in his baggy swim trunks and rubber beach shoes. "Yes, Stuart, I understand," I shout back. So here I am, ready to do the most dangerous stunt ever. All I have to do is jump. Gravity will do the work, and it'll all be over in a few seconds. Then I look down. I don't like what I see. From way up here, the water looks dark and angry as it swirls past. It doesn't look like a river. It looks like a gigantic serpent waiting to swallow me. Okay, so jumping from this bridge may not be as easy as it looks from the shore. I can't jump right away anyhow. I have to figure out what I'll bring back for my box of shocks. What can I take from this bridge? I pick at an old wooden beam for a minute, but a splinter of wood isn't good enough. It has to be something bigger, something better. My hand slides over one of the bolts that runs through the beam. A bolt would be perfect. There must be 100 or maybe 1,000 of these bolts holding the bridge together. But the one my hand rests on is loose. By jiggling it a bit, I'm able to slide the bolt out of the beam. Then, just before the bolt is all the way out of the beam, I stop. What'll happen if I pull this bolt all the way out of the beam? Will the bridge fall apart? Will it suddenly collapse into the river, taking me with it? This is a chance I must take. As I pull the bolt free of the wooden beam, I hold my breath. I don't hear any creaking or cracking. The bridge isn't shifting or swaying. Maybe this bridge will be fine without the bolt. My bolt. Yes, my bolt. This bolt is now mine. I clutch it tightly in one hand while I hang on to the wooden beam with the other. Now that I have my bolt, I have to jump. I'm ready. Or am I? Stuart sure is not helping. "If I were you, I'd come back down, Oliver. I mean it. The sign says..." "I know what the sign says, Stuart," I yell. "Then why are you disobeying it?" Stuart yells back. "I don't understand you. Why do you want to do something like this?" I ignore Stuart and look back down at the river. The water doesn't look any closer. The longer I look, the higher I seem to be. This is way higher than I've ever been before. This is way higher than the diving board I went off for those diving lessons Mom made me take at the pool. It's even higher than the time I climbed the tree in Grayson's backyard. And now I'm supposed to jump? I begin to wonder if this is such a great idea after all. Out of the corner of my eye, I see Stuart standing on the riverbank, jumping up and down and waving his arms like his armpits are on fire. He's shrieking, "Oliver, look out! The police are coming!" I turn quickly and see an RCMP officer driving onto the bridge. As I spin around, I lose my grip on the beam. I try to grab something, anything, but gravity takes over. The next 3 seconds are the longest 3 seconds of my life. And that's where the chapter ends. No, I'm just kidding. It goes on. As I fall, I'm laid out flat. If I hit the water like this, I'll be the belly flop that was heard around the world. How painful will that be? Then Just like they taught us in diving lessons, I quickly pull my knees up to my chest, tuck in my chin, and somersault in the air. When it feels like I'm the right way up, I straighten my body out. I hit the water feet first. Water shoots up my nose. My arms are thrown up above my head, and my swim trunks give me a giant wedgie. I don't care. Thanks to my diving lessons, I didn't do the world's biggest belly flop. But now I'm deeper under the water with bubbles swirling around me. Maybe I should have done a belly flop. My feet haven't touched the bottom, and it's dark, really dark. I look up and see the wobbly glimmer of the sun through the water. I need air, so I better get to the surface and fast, or else. I flail my arms and legs, kicking and thrashing and kicking, the light getting brighter by the second, my chest feeling like it's about to burst, kicking and thrashing and kicking until my head breaks the surface. I gasp for air, panting and puffing and trying to keep my head above the water. I swim towards the shore, thrashing my arms and my legs, but by the time I reach the riverbank, I've been swept downriver and the bridge is out of sight. I flop onto some grass with my arms over my head as I try to catch my breath. My body feels like a huge blob of jello, except for my right hand, which is still tightly clenched. I slowly uncurl my fingers. There, in the palm of my hand, is the bolt. And that's the end of the chapter. That was a good one. So scary. There's no way I would ever jump off that bridge. No way. But maybe you guys would. I don't know. Probably more brave than I am, but still sounds extremely dangerous. I don't know. I like that chapter. All right. Anyway, I hope you guys liked it too. I will see you later. Have a great week.